Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Good Burger, home of the Good Burger. May I take your order? Little bonus video here in section 6.2, estimating quotients with decimals. We're going to build on what we talked about in the previous video, but we're also going to talk about correctly placing the decimal in your quotient and how that can tie into the rest of the topic. So first, how can estimating help with decimal placement? I've seen a lot of you get correct digits, but in the wrong place values. And so we're going to sort of talk about two different strategies today that I think paired together might help a lot of us figure out where does the decimal go. Okay? So ultimately, we are going to be solving this problem that I'm going to read about here in just a second. Right, you're going on a trip to Washington. It's 282 5/10 miles away. It takes exactly 4.5 hours, 4 5/10 hours to drive. What is the average miles per hour, right, that your car, van, truck, motorcycle, bicycle is going, right? Miles divided by hours. This is the problem we're going to solve. Our first strategy here is we are going to use multiplication to help us get in the ballpark. We know that these two problems are very closely linked, right? Multiplication, very closely linked to division. So if I use estimating, 5 times some number is close to 280. For me, if you want to pause and then try this, you can. If you want to follow along, that's cool too. Right, for me, I know that 20 times 5 is 100, and 40 times 5 is 200, and I know 60 times 5 is 300. So I know it's somewhere between 40 and 60. The actual answer here is 56. 56 times 5, it's 30. 280. I know my answer to this long division problem is going to be close to 56. So here in this next slide, you're going to see my work to solve this problem. Now, this strategy is slightly different than the one I've talked about in a video for 6.7 and 6.8. In that video, I talk about a strategy for not dividing by the decimal. Here, what I've done is I've ignored the decimals. Here, what I've done is I basically said, all right, well, what's 2,825 divided by 45? But I also did it to where I had no remainder. So you'll notice here I continued to add zeros here until I got no remainder. Right, I had a remainder of 0, and I have nothing left to bring down. I brought everything down. I end up with the numbers 006277. And so now we have to figure out, well, where does the decimal go? Maybe it's in front of the zeros. Maybe it's in between the zeros. Maybe it's between the 0 and the 6, or the 6 and the 2, or the 2 and the 7, or the 7 and the 7, or maybe it's behind all the numbers. And then you start to think about, well, when I estimated this, that's not a 5. We're going to make it a 5. 5 times 56 got me to 280. Right? 5 times 56 got me in the ballpark. So where could I put the decimal in this answer, in this quotient, that was close to 56? And the answer to that question is between the 2 and the 7. Now, really quickly, let me connect this to 6.7 for you, right? If you do multiply both of these numbers by 10 so that you are dividing by 45 right off the bat, you'll notice here that the decimal would have ended up there anyway. This is just another strategy where I ignored the decimals and then I placed it based on my estimate. So, right, how could we do that in this problem? All right, let's estimate again, right? We're going to round this number first. We're going to round the divisor first, right? So 2. This is very close to 46. So ultimately, right, this is the division problem we're going to do. Maybe you can do that in your head. Maybe we need to think about it like multiplication. 2 times something gets me 46. Well, that answer is 23. So, okay. So now I need to solve this problem. Pause the screen and try it if you can, but I'm going to solve it by ignoring the decimal points. 457 divided by 183. I'm going to pause the screen myself and show you my work. Okay, here is my work. This particular problem does not divide evenly, so I've chosen to stop here with 3 digits. You'll remember my estimate was 23. Where could I place the decimal here so my answer was close to 23, right? That is between the 4 and the 9. Okay. Let's connect this to our 6-7 strategy. If I multiply 1 and 83/100ths by 2 decimal places, by 2 place values, by 100, right, to make this be actually 183, well, when I make my 2 hops inside, notice here, my decimal point would have ended up in the same place anyway. So again, our strategy right now is we're sort of ignoring the decimal points, and we're just doing this problem, these problems as if they were whole numbers, right? Here we go. Here's a whole number problem. 146 divided by 7. Here are my digits. How could you use estimating to figure out where the decimal point would go? Pause it and try it if you can. Right. So here, I'm going to ask myself 7 times what number is going to get me close to 140. Right. Well, that's 7 times 20. Right? So there is only one place here where I could put the decimal point so that it ended up being an answer close to 20, and that is right there. If this particular piece isn't making sense to you, you should pause and come and see me. And the reason for that is this entire slide is an extension of the previous one, right? So we know when we estimated, we found that this was the answer on the previous slide. So now how can we start to relate this idea? Well, what's going to happen is we start to include some decimals, right? So what I might encourage you to do is pause the screen and try it on your own. Right? If you're wrong, and we can talk about it. If you're right, maybe you're starting to understand more than you already know. So pause the screen and try it on your own. All right. Here we go. In this first one, you'll notice that when I compare these numbers, my original problem was 146 divided by 7. And I've gotten smaller in my divisor by 1 place value, which means I am making smaller groups. I start with the same size pile, 146, but the size of my groups has gotten smaller, which means I am able to make more groups by 1 place value, right? Original answer by 1 place value. So, in the second one, sort of the opposite is happening. My dividend has gotten smaller by 2 place values. So in this one, you could reason, well, the pile of money I'm splitting up is no longer $146. It's now $1.46. So $1.46, 1 46/100 is smaller than 7, which means I'm not even going to be able to make a whole group. Right? That's why I have a 0 in my ones place, let alone 7 whole groups. The last two, I'm going to draw sort of a line down the middle here. The last two are interesting. We're changing both the divisor and the dividend in the same way. So in this first one here, you'll notice that my dividend got smaller by 1 place value. My divisor also got smaller by 1 place value. That is why the answer stayed the same, right? They changed in the same way. In the last one, my dividend got bigger by 1 place value. My divisor got bigger by one place value. They changed in the same way, so my answer would stay the same. Okay. And then here we are on this last side. Again, I would pause it and try this on your own. All right. I'm going to start with the problem on the right. 1 and 46/100 divided by 7, right? If I round these and estimate it, I got a problem of 1 divided by 7. The dividend is smaller than the divisor, so my answer is going to be less than 1 whole, right? Very small here. Problem on the left. I showed my division not because I didn't trust that I put the right numbers up here, but to show you again, I did 137 divided by 8. I ignored the decimals up front. I kept adding zeros until I got no remainder, right? So all I did was I treated this like a division problem where I didn't want a remainder, but I haven't worried about the decimal yet. So if we round this, right, I round this to 1. You could keep this the same. I think that's the easiest, right, where I get 137. Maybe you round it to 140. Maybe you round it to something else. But again, there's only one place in this quotient where that even makes sense. My answer is not going to be 17. My answer is not going to be 1 and 7 something. My answer is not less than 1 whole. It's not 1,712. It's not 17,125. That's the only place close to 137. Now, last time, let's connect this to 6, 7. I don't want to divide by decimal. I want to divide by a whole number. So I multiply this by 10 up front, so it becomes 8. Well, if I make 1 hop outside, I also have to make 1 hop inside. Notice that if I had done that, my decimal still would have ended up between my 1 and my 2. So, there is no Savas or IXL for this video. If you have questions, please come and see me, right? Remember that you can use estimating to get in the ballpark, and you can use division with whole numbers to sort of do this, right? Dividing with whole numbers gets you the digits in your answer. Right, this equals the digits in your answer. Estimating tells you where the decimal should go. Have a great day.